If you talk to experienced real estate investors, they will tell you that property management is one of the most beneficial yet toughest areas to master. Today we're discussing my top 7 tips for effectively managing rental properties. Hi everyone, Jason Marcordes here with Landmark Property Management. Whether you're looking to buy your first rental property or start a property management company, these 7 areas can make or break your investment. So let's dive in. Starting with tip number 7, create a Rolodex of contractors. Managing the maintenance and unit turn side of the business is one of the most challenging areas of property management, primarily because, believe it or not, contractors can be unreliable at times. This includes things like communication, availability, and pricing, among other things. If you reach out to one of your handymen to fix your toilet at your rental property and he can't be out there for 3 or 4 days, you're gonna have a very upset tenant. I suggest creating a spreadsheet and listing all of the trades. Think plumbing, electric, general maintenance, etc. And then find a minimum of 3 contractors for each area. This ensures you don't have any weak spots and that if you're in a bind, you already have a contractor identified and you have their contact information. Tip number 6 is to create checklists. Checklists, of course, can be used in any business, but because property management has so many touch points, it makes it that much more important. You want to make sure that you're not missing any steps and that you can replicate the process the same way every time. This is super important if you plan on scaling and hiring an assistant or your own in-house property manager. One example of one of our checklists is our unit turn checklist. When a tenant moves out, we have our inspector bring a 9-page inspection checklist and go through the whole property to document any required repairs and build a scope of work for the unit turn. We used to more or less wing this, and after multiple tenants had moved in, there was always a few items that we missed. So this checklist helps to avoid that, and of course the headaches that come with an upset tenant. It's also very important to have checklists in certain areas such as tenant screening to avoid things like discrimination. And speaking of discrimination, tip number 5 is know your local, state, and federal laws. I can't stress this enough. You all know that we live in an extremely litigious world and there's a lot of potential liability in property management. You need to know the laws inside and out so you're not discriminating against a protected class or breaking the law in any other way. Tip number 4 is cast a wide net when marketing your vacancies. We've all seen the for rent signs in the front yard, which is fine as long as you pair that with a strong web presence. Just about everybody today has a computer or a smartphone, so you need to tap into that by listing your rental property on as many rental websites as possible. Leasing a vacancy is a sales process, and in order to get a signed lease, you need to get showings. And in order to get showings, you need to keep the top of your funnel full with prospective tenants. This is done by casting as wide of a net as possible. In addition to listing our vacant units on the MLS and our own website, we syndicate them out to over 80 additional websites like Redfin, Zillow, Apartments.com, etc. This guarantees that we're getting a ton of prospective tenants looking at our listings. Tip number 3 is make sure your vacant unit looks great. As the showing goes, you only get one chance to make a first impression. While you're trying to rent out your rental property, there are actually 2 first impressions you have to nail. One being the listing and the other being the showing itself. As far as the listing goes, you want to make sure all the unit turn work is done and the unit is cleaned prior to having the pictures taken. Now, when it comes to the pictures, you want to make sure that you get a professional photographer. That photographer is going to make sure that the unit is bright and the listing pictures look great, getting your listing as much attention as possible. Now, as far as the showing goes, you want to make sure the rental property smells good. It's often overlooked, and the lights are on and the blinds are open. Again, this is often overlooked, and you spend weeks of precious market time just to find out your property smells like a dog or smells like cat pee. Tip number 2 is focus on tenant screening. Now, the second most important aspect of a successful rental property is thorough tenant screening. A lot of mom and pop landlords, they'll review the application, maybe ask a couple questions, but that's typically the extent of their screening process. And this opens the door for so many potential issues. You want to make sure you're running a full battery of checks, including credit, background, eviction, income verification, and landlord verification, of course, if the laws in your area allow for it. Making sure you have a highly qualified tenant is going to make your life so much easier over the length of tenancy. All right, now, the number one tip for effectively managing rental property is to choose your location wisely. Now, everybody's heard of the golden rule of real estate, and that is location, 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 and you really don't realize how important that is until you start managing property. If you're looking to buy your first rental property or looking to start a property management company, the location is the most important thing you want to consider. Buying in a Class A area versus a Class C area could make or break your investment. I've managed thousands of units over the past decade and have experience in all types of neighborhoods. I can say firsthand that managing a Class A building in a Class A area is extremely different from a Class A building in a Class C area. Regardless of which area you choose, you just need to be prepared for it. There's going to be different systems, processes, different staffing requirements, different resources in general, depending on your service area and your specialty. All right, I hope this helped. As always, consider us at Landmark Property Management a resource. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us on the web at chicagospropertymanagement.com or give us a call. Thank you.